Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. We are live from Los Angeles. This is your host, young Brando, and we are going to talk about watches. Um, as always, I'm going to start warming up my vocal cords by talking about some of the recent stuff that I posted on Instagram, and there's plenty of material to go through there. But hey, if you guys want to rush things a little bit and get right to the Breguet auction, by all means, feel free to send in a super chat or two, and we will get right to it. That will give us an extra hour of watch talk as well, so we can always come back to this particular moment um, and discuss some of the stuff on Instagram. Actually, speaking of which, I completely forgot to post a link on Instagram, which brings me quite a bit of um, quite a bit of actually audience. So I can't forsake that. Let's stay right here. Hit the like button, and I'll be with you shortly. I just don't want to be focused on my phone and say nothing. So I'm just gonna use some of this music. And I'll see you in a second. right, all right, all right. We are back. There we are. And we are already talking about watches, guys. This was a cool find for me, and it opened up yet another opportunity too, which I'll be happy to talk with you about soon enough. But for now, I'll just share this. You're looking at Jacob Elordi, who is in the process of completing his transformation, his transition from being a heartthrob to a serious dramatic actor. There doesn't need to be a dichotomy between those two things, of course, but Hollywood is a strange place, so it has to be. And it has to take time, but I love to see it, and I love to see it especially for this man in particular, wearing for once again in public something that is not Cartier. He has worn in Saltburn, actually, in Saltburn, I should say, a Rolex piece that I've shared with you before on my Instagram, which is purported to have come from his personal collection. And right here, he's actually wearing an AP, and I love to see it. We are quite used to seeing this particular configuration of day date and phases of the moon. It's especially popular when it comes encased in that emblematic shape of the brand, of that Janta design, the Royal Oak, 25594, so-called owl, is always a popular model, but this is a very rare version, a jumbo example, 33 millimeters in diameter, of the Bamboo. Bamboo is one of those design watches, one of these more jewelry-oriented pieces that come from AP's catalog of yesteryear, and it literally takes its name from that integrated design where the whole piece looks like a bundle of bamboo stacks intricately woven together, and it's a brilliant design, and I like it. Of course, rarity takes the cake here, right? The jumbo case is much more rare than the 20, 23, pardon me, and the 27 millimeter versions, some of which are quartz powered, others hand wound, yet others self winding. But this particular self winding jumbo version is much, much more rare than everything else. And for that reason, trades for significantly higher as well. But hey, it is a beautiful watch, and I like how the enlarged case size actually makes the octagonal shape of the design even more dramatic. Hard not to love this piece, the AP Bamboo Jumbo, day dates and phases of the moon in 18 karat yellow gold, with a champagne dial on the wrist of Jacob Elordi, who has, I think, just come out or is about to come out with the new Frankenstein movie, which is directed by Guillermo del Toro. Please hit the like button while you're at it. Ryan, nice to see you, baby. Thanks for being here. And we are, as always, I'm sharing the links, by the way, so feel free to hit the like button on those Instagram posts. And even feel free to leave a comment if you would. You guys know I'm an engagement demon. I love this sort of stuff. And I am desperate to hit these new benchmarks that I hit for I set for myself 25K on Instagram, 5K here. If you can bring me more people here, most welcome. If some of you guys would hit the like button there, follow me if you don't already, that would be also incredibly welcome. No, not really. Actually, the Breitling bracelet is very different. I think you're talking about the bullet bracelet design, and it has absolutely nothing to do with bamboo. I'm sorry, this is my style, nothing personal, but when I state facts, I'm usually very harsh. Hopefully you don't misunderstand that, but I like getting straight to the point. Breitling has never made anything like the bamboo or its bracelet, which is fine, right? It's just not a style that they've ever explored. We're looking at Jay-Z on a trip to Doha, Qatar, and he's given a personal tour, a private tour of the National Museum of Qatar, wearing a Paul Newman Daytona. This is the piece that is set to be his birth year watch. The Mark I dial is kind of intimating that, right, in terms of situating it in a certain time period, right? 1969 in this case, most probably. It is, of course, the most desirable configuration of hand-wound Daytonas too, the reference 6263, which combines the bakelite bezel, the plastic bezel for the tachymeter, and the screw-down pushers. Of course, the Panda dial. And this particular example is set to be once retailed from Tiffany. I don't know if this is still the case, but Jay-Z used to be a Tiffany ambassador as well. So everything kind of comes together, and this is, of course, a very, very precious piece indeed. So we are looking at Jay-Z and his Paul Newman Daytona. This is a very cool watch, and I'm very happy that I got the chance to post about it. The piece literally is coming up on auction in the November sale of Future Grail, whose auctions we have explored together previously, and we are going to look at that November sale in due time as well. But for now, this is the Rolex Antimagnétique Rattrapante chronograph, one of the only 12 split seconds chronograph that Rolex has ever made, and it comes in an oversized case that was extremely large for the time period, especially for Rolex, 44 millimeters in diameter. And its origins remain something of a mystery, but the mystery has been sort of unpeeled. The fog of war has mostly dissipated by now, even though there are still certain questions about the 12 examples, 9 of which have been made public so far. They're all in stainless steel. They all feature multi meter scales, right? In each case, it's a tachymeter inscribed on the periphery of the dial and a telemeter, usually in a shade of blue in a concentric circle. And for that scale in particular, right, which was a military-oriented instrument, so to speak, to gauge your distance, the distance of your trenches from the enemy lines, using sight and sound. Some have said that these pieces were initially commissioned for military use. That may or may not be true. After all, a similar split seconds chronograph made by Universal Genève with the same bass movement and retailed by Cairelli with a 24-hour dial remains also a very collectible piece, though not as collectible, not as rare, and not as precious as the Rolex 4113. Another clue was the first public auction sale of this piece, not this particular piece, but one of the examples of 4113, which was in 1991, and it was an example made available by a family member of Stefano Lamotta, who was an Italian, who belonged to the Italian nobility and who was actually a race car driver, a gentleman driver, so to speak, who ended up actually losing his life later on, doing what he loved. But here he is photographed wearing his example of the 4113. And it turns out that a lot of these examples, at least the ones that have become public, the 9 examples, can usually be traced back to some sort of motorsports context and for the most part to what was an important race at the time, Giro di Sicilia. So that gives us a piece that is very much steeped in the history of motorsports, in the history of Italian racing specifically. And this was actually the watch that John Goldberger, Auro Montanari, displayed in that iconic episode of Talking Watches, using the cheese wife to prop open the case back. So let's share that very quickly here.
This watch here, what is this watch?
This is a Rolex chronograph split second, stainless steel, manufactured by Rolex in 12 example in 42. Inside there is a good value caliber 55 VBR, the same caliber you can find in the other 3 watches.
I think that's kind of an interesting point about this is this watch, the 4113, is one of the most appreciated watches in vintage watches today, and that costs a lot, we'll say. And then these other 3 examples, which use the exact same movement, are considerably less. Why is the Rolex worth X where these are worth Y?
Because Rolex on the dial.
This whole explanation always cracks me up, because it starts with, because it's Rolex on the dial.
It also is better designed than the other one. The case is thinner and lighter. They made only 12 examples, and
the case design is absolutely beautiful, right? Even though, again, it is a big watch for the time, certainly, maybe less so for now, at 44 millimeters in diameter. It sits very thin on the wrist. The lugs that are short and beautifully downturned with kind of a teardrop-like end. There's something very special about it, right? You can't find any other case, any other similar case design from Rolex before or after this piece. And again, the rarity, of course, but this is what he says, and this is why you gotta love him.
it's Rolex.
It's Rolex. Yeah,
Why don't we-
that's it. Like, the main reason that this watch is so much more precious than everything else out there which is powered by the same Valjoux 55 VBR split seconds chronograph movement.
So could you tell us about the movements of some of these?
Stainless steel back with the reference.
So this is a Valjoux with a
55 BBR. You see the Rolex name on it.
And again, this gives him the chance to explain, right, that the Rolex movement, which is the same movement in terms of the ébauche, in terms of the base that is used, is better finished as well. And chances are also it employs modifications that makes it better regulated, possibly better shock resistant, though I can't really abide by that.
They made 12 pieces, and the known are 8. There are.
Since then, since this Talking Watches episode, another one emerged. So 9 of them are accounted for so far. And the last one that sold publicly was actually Auro Montanari's own example by Monaco Legend Group, and I think it hammered for more than 3 million euro. So this is going to be a huge sale no matter what.
Are still 4 unknown.
So they're somewhere out there.
Somewhere.
And again, it is really a beautiful example. Actually, from those that are accounted for, aesthetically, this is the one that's most pleasant to me, because I love, and I wrote about this in my narrative here too, I love how it has that pink gold crown, of course, with the coaxial pusher integrated onto it for the split seconds function. That complements beautifully the dial furniture, which also bears this pinkish hue, as well as the hands, of course, which have that pink gold material.
Why don't we start with
Gorgeous watch coming up for sale at Future Grail's November sale. Please check them out, and most importantly, again, please, and I'm gonna send you the link here, please engage with this particular post. Hit the like button, share it, leave a comment. It is really important. I appreciate you again. We are looking at our next watch. I've previously featured Oscar Schaefer and his watches through the lens of Brad Trent, the photographer who at least once a year had the chance to photograph Oscar Schaefer as part of Barron's I think mid-year roundtable on finance. Whatever it was, they came together once a year, and he always had the great Patek to wear. Brad had something special up his sleeve, at least on one occasion, but he is usually a Panerai guy, a Paneristo, so to speak. And here he is wearing the Panerai Radiomir Black Seal reference PAM 183. And Oscar Schaefer is wearing the Patek Philippe 10-day tourbillon in platinum with that rosé dial, with that salmon dial. I really love this case design with those triple stepped flanks which scream Art Deco. I also love the combination of blackened hands and dial furniture against the backdrop of that salmon pink dial. I love how the 10-day power reserve indicator balances the small seconds subdial, which of course bears only the name tourbillon and the specific number of the movement. Patek errs on the side of discretion when it comes to their tourbillon watches. There's no open work tourbillon cage on the dial side, barring a certain exception. If you can recall that off the top of your mind, please feel free to share it in the chat. I'm not going to digress, but here we are. This is Patek's way of doing the tourbillon in wristwatch form. Of course, as is the norm with modern platinum examples of Patek watches, there's that single brilliant cut diamond set between the lugs at 6 o'clock. The case has a beautiful curvature to it, in addition to those three-stepped flanks. And the movement, of course, is conceived for and fitted perfectly to this rectangular case, which is unique. We are looking at the reference 5101P dash 010. The reference was introduced in 2003 in exactly this configuration. And the movement is COSC certified, which is something that Patek usually doesn't go through the trouble. But since they used the tourbillon regulator in this watch, they wanted to put it to that test, and they wanted to also certify in terms of its chronometric precision and accuracy. Of course, the twin barrel system of the movement ensures that that precision lasts for the entire 10-day power reserve. The movement itself is beautifully decorated. There's a certain lightness to the Geneva waves on the bridges. The anglage is just as easy on the eyes. The tourbillon bridge is black polished and rounded, and it features a number of interior angles that testify to the artisanal work that goes into making these sorts of special numbers for Patek. The tourbillon cage itself also has a number of interior angles. And pre-2009 examples of this piece, which went from 2003 to 2013, also bear the hallmark of Geneva, which you can see here. Of course, after 2009, Patek switches to their own Patek Philippe seal. Beautiful piece. This is Oscar Schaefer and his 5101P. This is a watch that stands on the other end of the spectrum in many ways. If the 5101 is Art Deco elegance, this deep sea is all modern utilitarianism taken to its obnoxious extreme. I've talked about this watch before, and I really think that the Deep Sea 44 in yellow gold replaces Yachtmaster 2. Of course, you will easily say, hey, what do these two watches have in common, right? You know, they don't have anything to do with each other. And I know in terms of complication, the Yachtmaster 2 was really unique and perhaps also very important in its own way. But ultimately, for the Rolex clients, the Yachtmaster 2 really was that big, obnoxious gold Rolex that they wanted to get if they are into that style, right? So that place has been now taken over by the 136 668 LB, which is the deep sea, 44 millimeters in diameter, all in yellow gold with a blue Cerachrome bezel as well as a matte blue dial. And you guys will have recognized, of course, with these new generation of the deep sea pieces, they're now their own collection, right? You know, Rolex doesn't call them even in catalogs or official speak deep sea dweller anymore. There's sea dweller, right? You know, which exists in its own 43 millimeter case, in stainless steel and in the bimetal two-tone execution. And then there's deep sea, you know, with the James Cameron, yellow gold, so on and so forth. And Will Arnett, whom I have profiled before with his James Cameron, apparently really likes these pieces. So there he is wearing this time the Rolex Deep Sea in full 18 karat yellow gold. That's Will Arnett with the Deep Sea 136 668 LB at the Academy Museum Gala, which incidentally is held in partnership with Rolex. So he knew what to wear, certainly. Zlatan Ibrahimovic. Yeah, it must be quite a workout, right? Even in steel, but I can't imagine in full gold. And Ryan, yes, I actually love the Breitling bullet bracelet. I think it's a very cool piece of design. We're looking at Zlatan Ibrahimovic, who was reuniting with Stefano Pioli, who is basically the last person or the last coach to bring the Scudetto to AC Milan. He's coaching Fiorentina now, and Zlatan has some sort of technical responsibility. I don't know his exact title. He's certainly not a coach. He belongs to the administrative brass, so to speak, at the club. And he loves this particular execution of the Nautilus. He has the platinum version as well, but this one is in 18 karat pink gold, the 5722 line 112R-001. Rubies. There are 44 of them in total. Baguette cut for the bezel, and 12 further baguette cut rubies as our markers for the chocolate brown dial as well. And it's a close, again, approximation of Milan's colors, of course, right? You know, which is rosso nero. They are the red and black devils, so to speak, which they have kind of commemorated in this logo that is right behind them. This is Zlatan wearing the Patek Philippe Nautilus in 18 karat pink gold in the jam set version that bears 44 baguette cut rubies on its bezel and its dial. Let's change it up a little bit. We are looking at Naomi Campbell She's out on a date with Joe Pesci, of all people. This kind of shocked me when I first saw it. No disrespect, Joe. I know you're a wise guy, so I wouldn't want to get into trouble. But what I was most interested in was, of course, the watch on Naomi Campbell's wrist. Incidentally, she is still an ambassador for this brand. She is wearing in 1998, driving in, rolling in, pulling up in a red Cadillac convertible with Joe Pesci, a Bulgari Diagono in aluminum. This was actually quite a novelty when it came out in 1998 in terms of combining aluminum and rubber. 38 millimeter aluminum case, which had a rubber crown and a rubber bezel, which is inscribed twice with the name of the house. A design that goes all the way back to Gerald Genta's conception for the Bulgari Roma watch, and that is originally inspired by those Roman coins that were minted in the name of the emperor. Of course, there's a rubber strap as well, which has aluminum hinges as well, and an aluminum pin buckle that is signed Bulgari as well. There was a chronograph version too, and this particular design actually came back, I believe, in 2020 in an iteration that has time and date with a similar dial to this, as well as a black dial. There are a few variations in the previous era as well, and there is also a chronograph 2 again. Now both with an enlarged case of 40 millimeter in diameter. Yeah, I mean, you gotta love him. You gotta love him. There's and if you look at this on your phone, unfortunately the desktop version doesn't support this, but I always add songs in the background. So this was literally them driving to the album's release party. As you guys know, Joe Pesci, under a moniker, actually sings. Vincent LaGuardia Gambini, I think is his name. But I think recently all of it has been released as Joe Pesci, if I'm not mistaken. And there's like a variety of genres represented, and he's actually pretty good. What can I tell you? He's kind of great. So I shouldn't have been that surprised, right? You know, of course he's gonna be able to pull Naomi Campbell. This was a little bit of a sad news, the end of an era, certainly. Robert Allen Prenner, Bob Prenner, who with his wife, Sue, really put Ben Silver collection on the map. Ben Silver is a traditional American clothing store, mostly menswear, but I think they have a women's collection as well. They make great eyewear as well on top of all of that. But when he took over the company with his wife, after the Ben Silver, who was, of course, his father-in-law, passed away, they were mostly left with a specialist blazer button maker. That's what Ben Silver was when they took it over. And thanks to this contract that they have gotten actually from the Reagan presidential campaign, which ordered, I think, was it 3,000? I think 3,000 sets of blazer buttons from Ben Silver, which were given at the inauguration to a number of attendees, and that kind of gave them the capital injection that allowed them to take the company to the next level, right? They started with a blazer, which would serve as the artistic canvas to present what was their staple still at the time, the blazer buttons. And then the story started there, and they're still an eminent bastion of classic American style, with a beautiful catalog that they mail to millions of customers nationwide. Of course, they continue to sell their products in their flagship store as well as on their website as well. The flagship store, once again, is in Charleston, South Carolina, which you should visit if you ever end up in that town, because it does really express a beautiful version, a beautiful Southern version, I should say, of trad style. What also goes sometimes, although this has always been debated that they are not really equal, but trad in many ways is also Ivy style, campus style, but it's really different strands of classical American style, which Bob Prenner, the late Bob Prenner, so ably embodied, represented as well. And you see him wearing here Gégé Lecoutre Reverso in Grand Taille and in a bimetal execution as well. Aryna Sabalenka, the world tennis number one, the Belarusian ace, is enjoying her downtime in Carbone in Dubai with a friend, and she's still wearing AP, of course, but I'm very happy to report that it is a vintage example, and it is an example of the bamboo, which it turns out is the watch of the year in so many ways. Certainly the watch of the summer and beyond in year 2025. And she's really wearing a very beautiful, very exquisite gem set example, fully set with brilliant cut diamonds, 296 of them on its pavé dial, 36 on the bezel, and a further 421 on the case and the bracelet. The bamboo was, of course, one of AP's unique offerings that had reimagined the wristwatch in the face of the quartz crisis as an exquisitely crafted piece of jewelry. And the fully gem set execution here on Sabalenka's wrist truly honors this origin. This is fantastic, and I was really happy again to see her wearing a curated example of the brand that she so proudly represents, and in many contemporary pieces too. There's no problem with that, but it really excites me that a lot of these ambassadors are going this vintage and neo-vintage way as well, and diversifying what that brand can mean to them, and how they align with it, how they affiliate with it, how they identify with it. I think that's really important. That makes the connection, in my eyes at least, much more authentic. This was a great find for me, and I've worked on this for quite a while. So I would appreciate, again, all these links that I'm sharing from Instagram. Please hit the link, hit the like, leave a comment if you can. It's very important to me. This is the late Sergio Loro Piana. Everything I said about Bob Prenner can be said about Sergio Loro Piana, and probably on a more global level. although, of course, his importance for Italian clothing, the schmata business there, um, the world of cashmere and luxury, um, menswear, womenswear, and beyond is very, very important. He led the company in tandem with his brother, Pierluigi or PG Loro Piana, who is still alive and who still has a stake in the company, even though they are now owned by LVMH, Louis Vuitton. Sergio Loro Piana died very young at age 65, if I'm not mistaken. This is a photo of him 30 years before that, at age 35, in Milan. And he strikes a beautiful and pensive pose. Everything deserves some comment, some recognition at the very least in his outfit. That crisp linen handkerchief, carefully but also nonchalantly folded in the breast pocket of his double-breasted jacket, which I'm sure is actually part of a full suit, because that's how he usually put himself together. As you can see, even from the picture, the jacket is unbuttoned, quite relaxed, classic spread collar shirt with the collars folding beautifully and tucking under the lapel, which gives you a fantastic management of this space. And that he fills expertly with a simple forehand knot with one of the most gorgeous and sumptuous single dimples that you can ever tie. Of course, with the back blade ever so cleverly extended a little bit behind the actual tie, so you get a little more volume, so you occupy a little more space right here. It's really, there are levels to this, right? You know, there are some people who can dress well, others who can dress really well, and others like Sergio Loro Piana who are at this level of minute detail where you literally need to have paid your dues to even notice, much less employ yourself, right? That's another level. It's easy for me to sit down and try to break it down, but to be able to dress like this, put yourself together like this, and carry yourself like this, it's really another sphere of existence, sartorial existence that few can aspire to. Gianni Agnelli comes to mind, but of course the late Sergio Loro Piana was also that, and it's no coincidence he's wearing his wristwatch a la Agnelli over the cuff of his dress shirt, and it is a very precious Eberhard chronograph. They made some beautiful pieces, but this particular genre, which later transformed into what they call extrafort, named after its robust and oversized cases. In this particular case, no pun intended, the case is oversized because of the Valjoux 65 ébauche used for the movement, which for Eberhard was caliber 16,000. That 16 at the beginning actually takes after the size of the movement, measured, of course, in this odd French unit called ligne, 16 ling movement, that's Varjus 65, which is roughly 36 millimeters in diameter. So quite a big movement for the time, where men wore, even if they wore chronographs, watches that were at most maybe 34 millimeters. This is a 40s watch, right? I'm not talking about the 80s necessarily. But when this watch was originally made, before the extra fort branding was even applied, in the 30s and 40s, I believe the watch on Sergio Loro Piana's wrist comes from the 40s, just like this example that I was able to locate in 18 karat yellow gold. You can see the case has those beautiful lugs, bull or ball-shaped crown, olive-shaped pushers, lovely three-step bezel, and a double-hinged case back, as you can see here, which, my God, look at that step bezel. It's one of the most beautiful vintage chronographs that I've ever seen. In fact, is this caliber 16,000 Eberhard. They're sometimes called pre-extra fort, because again, they're the precursors to the extra fort chronographs that Eberhard made later. One important detail is, even though the aesthetics might imply that this is a standard two-pusher chronograph where you have start, stop at 2 o'clock and reset at 4 o'clock, things are a little bit different. This is actually a monopusher where all the chronograph functions are engaged with the pusher at 2 o'clock, start, stop, reset. What you have here at 4 o'clock is actually a sliding button, which, when used, allows you to pause the chronograph without having to reset it. So it stops. You can get an intermediate reading, and when you slide it back, it continues to run from the same position. An interesting and important technological feat at the time. And here is how that movement looked on the inside. Again, not necessarily the most beautiful, the most intricately finished movement, that is for sure, but still there's some depth to it. There's a technical achievement attached to it, and I think it remains quite underrated as well. And you can probably tell from the strap too that the watch has fixed lugs, fixed spring bars, I should say. Of course, every watch has fixed lugs. Beautiful design, great movement, and a very stylish man who wears this stylish chronograph that befits his approach of quite luxury. Thank you, man. I love that. I love that. And feel free. Again, I never tire of asking this. I'm not ashamed. This is an independent channel. I put a lot of work to it, and I need the resources. So please, as you hit the like button and share the content, feel free to also support me in the ways that YouTube enables you, whether it's a super chat. You can also get yourself or gift to others a membership, which gives you access to exclusive content. And hey, puts you ahead of schedule because soon enough, these live streams will be members exclusive for most of the time, if not every single time. So that is something to keep in mind. In either case, I appreciate each and all of you, but obviously any support would be well appreciated. We are looking now finally at the Sotheby's auction, a celebration of Breguet's 250th anniversary. There we go. There's also of course, one way we use these occasions for the auction previews is I send the link, you look through the lots, even in a cursory manner, choose one that you like and send in the lot number with a super chat, and I go in further detail. I'm going to start with lot 7, and I love the fact that a lot of these, pieces that are selected for this auction are pieces that have inspired Breguet in modern time, in the era of the wristwatch. If you have ever been interested in Breguet, you probably recognize this dial design, and it is actually a reference that is near and dear to my heart. We were just talking about the appeal of day dates and the phases of the moon in another context. This particular piece combines it beautifully. And reference 3330 in the world of Breguet wristwatches was actually modeled after an example of a pocket watch like this. This is lot number 7 of the upcoming November sale by Sotheby's Geneva, which celebrates the 250th anniversary of Breguet. Beautiful, slim, open-faced, montre attacked, which displays, in addition to hour and minutes, of course, day, date, and the phases of the moon. I love how the phases of the moon is placed at the focal point of the watch. And you have these rotating discs for both the day and the date. Breguet hands, guilloche decorated dial, and a power reserve indicator that beautifully balances the signature, which is at around 10 o'clock, and the power reserve indicator, or the cutout for it, specifically is at around 2 o'clock. It's a very slim piece, beautifully decorated gold case, which is itself, right, a guilloche ricochet design. I think it combines white gold and yellow gold. and apparently it was sold on June 1st, 1829, originally for 5,080 francs, which was 2,000 British pounds at the time. This is a watch that was also shown in George Daniels's book, The Art of Breguet. The reason this is called montre intact is because it has a specific complication where you can read the time by touch, whether because it's dark or because you want to be discreet about it without having to pull it out of your pocket and look at it in the middle of everyone, which could be, again, considered at that time at least untactful. Beautiful piece with an estimated value that is set in the range between 125,000 to $250,000 in US dollars. Another piece, another design that is actually very recently used to celebrate the 250th anniversary by Breguet. They just came out with two new releases, one of which was modeled practically after this. To show you very quickly, I will come back to this watch and then maybe we can talk about the new version, the Classique 7225 that just came out, was modeled after this watch, this design. The original Mickey Mouse watch, as you can see, which comes from an era where Mickey Mouse didn't even exist just yet. This is a watch that actually comes from a branch of the Breguet family, it turns out, in 18 karat gold with a 4-minute tourbillon that features a natural escapement, a power reserve indicator, subsidiary seconds, and piston activated observation seconds. Breguet number 1890. Which was delivered to Monsieur Frédéric Frachmann on May 16th, 1809, and sold to Count Alexis Razumovsky for 3,240 francs at the time. That's a paltry sum compared to its current pre-auction estimate, which is set in the range between 440,000 US dollars, roughly speaking, up to an amount that borders on $880,000 in the US currency. Gold dial, gold 65 millimeter case. engine turned with a barley corn pattern, satin finish chapter rings, Roman numerals for hours, Arabic for the subsidiary dials, for the seconds dials, and the running seconds runs to the left, observation seconds to the right. Right, this is the running second subdial. This is the observation second subdial. So observation seconds is the right, well, the left ear of the Mickey Mouse, and the right ear of the Mickey Mouse is the running seconds. And this is called a regulator because, again, you have the center dial, which shows the hour, and then you have this extended minute hand that reaches to the periphery, which features a minute track as well. And you have the power reserve at 6 o'clock, or minute 30, you can say. Wow. Look at that. Oof. The 4-minute tourbillon, natural escapement. And you have the fusée and chain method of the constant force mechanism. Amazing. This is again Breguet pocket watch number 1890 in 18 karat gold, which features a 4-minute tourbillon, natural escapement, power reserve indicator, subsidiary seconds, as well as observation seconds. Fantastic movement. Here's a closer look at the tourbillon cage. Lot 9, the dial design of which has just been resurrected by the modern brand Breguet for the classic 7225. And the pre-auction estimate for this watch is right around 440,000 to 880,000, roughly speaking, in US currency. We're looking at the Sotheby's Geneva auction, which is going to take place on November 9th. It is an auction that commemorates the 250th anniversary of Breguet. And it features a number of very important historical pocket watches, of which we have just looked at 2. From our biased, you might say, standpoint, since we are mostly interested in wristwatches here. So I chose examples that spoke to their design of wristwatches in our time. We're going to look at another one of that, but let's take a look at some of the Type 20s they are featuring here, some of which are very early examples. So let's take a look at lot 16. It's kind of a two-tone version from 1954, made for Société d'Aviation Louis Breguet, which is a company established actually by one of the heirs of the brand, even though they did not own the brand at that time. Type 20 was first mentioned in the spring of 1953. One of the important mid-century designs in horology, and certainly one of the storied, quote-unquote, mil-spec pieces. Number 499 and 498 as well are the only known examples that combine a stainless steel watch with an 18-karat gold bezel. Both watches were apparently delivered to Société d'Aviation Louis Breguet. This particular example is again number 499. One of the very early examples as well. This is lot number 16 for a very rare variation of the aviation chronograph that Breguet made in the mid-20th century on commission from the aerial forces of the French Navy. The Type 20, the flyback chronograph, which here is rendered in a 2-register configuration with the big eye for the minute totalizer at 3. And it uniquely combines, along with just another known example, the stainless steel case with an 18-karat gold bezel. The estimated value of the piece is set in the range between 50,000 to 100,000 in the US currency. That was lot number 16. Lot 17 is Type 20 Aubertin. Again, a beautiful, beautiful example of the big eye flyback chronograph. That also features a red tachymeter scale. Of course, what distinguishes these pieces are, once again, the oversized Arabic numerals against the backdrop of a black dial for purposes of legibility, of course. You have the continuous running seconds at 9 o'clock and a minute totalizer at 3. Here calibrated for 30 minutes with a fusile hand. Syringe hands for hour and minutes, and a centrally deployed chronograph seconds hand that has an arrow tip, and that is like spear shaped. You also have, in this particular example, a tachymeter scale inscribed in red in a concentric circle in relation to the seconds track, and a rotatable bezel for the 12 hours. This is number 1669, sold to Monsieur Aubertin on December 26th, 1954. Must be a slightly late Christmas gift. It is accompanied apparently with a steel mesh link bracelet, you can see, and locking clasp. Henri Aubertin's gilt Ray-Ban aviator sunglasses, 2 Air France pins, an Air France crew luggage tag, first French Army commemorative icon with Henri Aubertin's name, Colonia Madagascar commemorative coin, Henri Aubertin's pilot license, additional documents, copies of pictures, and a Breguet 250th anniversary certificate, which accompanies, in fact, every single lot in this particular auction. Aubertin was a French military hero who became a civil pilot after his return to France post World War II. This is his watch. This is his Type 20, which features a very special dial in stainless steel, presented on mesh style bracelets in matching stainless steel. The pre-auction estimate is set in the range between $30,000 to $62,000 in US dollars. That was lot 17. There are a couple of other Type 20s. Those two early pieces were such special examples that you feel like anything else will somehow pale in comparison, but lot 18 and 19 deliver a lot too. Because again, these are genuine examples of what Breguet made for the Aéronaval, for the air forces of the French Navy. This is one supplied to Aéronautique Navale on January 13, 1960, lot 18, for the stainless steel flyback pilot's chronograph with its minute totalizer calibrated for 15 minutes, which apparently was the time required to prepare an aircraft for launch in that era. The rotating bezel here has a triangular indicator and has that milled edge. Look at that beautiful crown there. Real tool watch. Great case design, which Breguet did their best to bring back in some measure, even though they fucked it all up by including a date window, but don't get me started on that. And you can see the screw-down case back is actually inscribed with the commission numbers too, with the issue numbers, I should have said. This is lot 18 with a pre-auction estimate that sets the value of the watch somewhere in the range between 27,600 to 56,500 in US dollars. The pilot's chronograph with flyback functionality in stainless steel, actually delivered to the Aéronautique Navale, the Air Forces of the French Navy, at lot 18. Lot 19 is an example made in 1955 with a tropical dial and a 30-minute register. Again, it features a 12-hour bezel that serves as the hour counter, 30-minute totalizer represented with a big eye at 3 o'clock and continuous running seconds at 6. With military style fixed spring bars as well, as you can see from the wraparound leather strap here. This is watch number 1920. Beautiful tropical dial. Lot 19 has a pre-auction estimate that is set in the range between 37,600 to an amount in excess of 75,000 in US dollars. We have about 15 minutes, so if you have any requests, if you have any watch-related questions that you would like me to answer, please send them in with a super chat, and I will be more than happy to respond to them. There's so many important pieces here, so many interesting examples that I would like to discuss, but I don't think I'll be able to fit all of them here because I do want to end right around midnight. So maybe I will talk about 3 more watches, unless, again, there are some questions coming from you. I want to talk about what I presented in my thumbnail. First of all, which is one of those rare diver's watches that Breguet produced. I've talked about this watch in various forms before, here on YouTube and also on my Instagram. This is a piece that in one variant was worn by the legendary American Formula One driver Dan Gurney as well, in year 1965, if I'm not mistaken. These stainless steel diver watches were made in different iterations, but certainly in less than 60 examples by Breguet at the time. They're exceedingly rare, and increasingly they have sold for very significant amounts whenever they have come up on public auction. Let's check out this specific example. Again, this is lot 61 in the upcoming November 9th sale by Sotheby's of Geneva. The watch features a date window at 3 o'clock and a bakelite bezel, or rather a bakelite insert on the rotational dive timing bezel. Black dial with large luminous markers and a lollipop style hour hand. very classic skin diver look from the time period. Made in very sparing numbers again, from early to mid 1960s. And a lot of this particular style is actually very close in case numbers to each other. This is number 1624. And frankly, every other example that I've seen so far coming up on public auction with this particular aesthetics has been in that same range. Again, this is lot 61, Breguet diver's watch that has been made in very small numbers around mid 60s, but probably early to mid 60s, in stainless steel, classic skin diver look, but very rare in the realm of Breguet. Here, the estimated value is between 40,000 to roughly 70,000 in US dollars. Here is an interesting world time pocket watch. With a self-winding movement from the turn of the century, 1999. Lot 24 is presented as montre perpétuelle, and the word perpétuelle here is used pretty much in the same way that Rolex uses the word perpetual. It refers to the self-winding movement of the watch. Nevertheless, there's a power reserve indicator roughly at 10 o'clock in relation to this eccentrically placed dial, which is kind of pushed towards 3 o'clock. Of course, in the classic world time fashion, it combines a 24-hour ring with an outer ring, which represents the 24 hours in the style of city names. This is Breguet number 1055 in 18 karat gold, 62 millimeters in diameter, beautiful silver dial, engine turned by hand, featuring a barley corn pattern. And here's a look at that perpétuel, or rather self-winding movement, which has that hammer style winding mechanism, which was Abraham Louis Breguet's first essay into the possibility of a self-winding pocket watch movement. So there's an interesting homage there from year 1999. This is lot 24. Let's convert this stuff to US. The pre-auction estimate is somewhere in the range between 40,000 to 65,000 in US dollars. Here's another one of those influential pocket watch designs. That made it into the world of Breguet pocket watches, wristwatches. in the form of reference 3130. Here we go. We are looking at lot number 48. Of course, this is a much more complicated watch. The watch that Daniel Roth literally used as his inspiration, his design foundation, was number 5. This is number 722, formerly number 65. It's a watch that they called Répétition Perpétuelle at lot 48. That features a linear calendar, phases of the moon, as well as a power reserve indicator on its dial, which in that asymmetric design has given some sense of direction to Breguet's more modern wristwatch designs too. 48 millimeters in diameter. The watch case also features beautiful engine turns decorations. The calendar work is added later to the watch. So originally number 65, I believe, looked very much like number 5, which gave inspiration for the modern reference 3130. But this watch being quote unquote upgraded with the calendar complication was recased as number 722, or represented, you can say, as that. Here's a look at the movement inside. Look at those grumpy moons as part of the indicator. Amazing. That hammer mechanism again for the self-winding movement. And it's a quarter repeater as well, right? You know, I think that was originally part of it too. The calendar work is the one that was added later. And that's apparently a stainless steel disc for the moon that's heat tempered, that's blued. Beautiful. Wow. Some very interesting pocket watches that they have chosen and I'm glad, right? Because they could after all curate a bunch of more modern pieces, and that would be one way of tackling a 250th anniversary commemorative auction. They could have just appended a couple of historical pocket watches to spice things up, but they have done it in equal measure, and that's obviously the more appropriate way of honoring Breguet's legacy, since that's the work he did. The modern brand Breguet only takes inspiration from some of his design ideas, some of his technical innovations, but the real work that he did was in the world of pocket watches, which has been, of course, expertly cataloged by many, but certainly none better than George Daniels himself in the book, The Art of Breguet, which I would heartily recommend to everyone. You're looking at lot 48 from the 250th anniversary Breguet auction coming up on November 9th by Sotheby's of Geneva. A quarter repeater pocket watch with a later added calendar modification and phases of the moon, all done by Breguet. This is number 722, born as number 65. Lot 48 has a pre-auction estimate for its value in the range between $125,000 to an amount in excess of $250,000. Amazing. Again, look at that. I mean, that's a substantial piece. Apparently, with its chain and key, the winding key, it weighs altogether 122.5 grams. Not too bad. Not too bad. All right. I would have liked to stay more, but as you guys know, I'm very principled about being paid for my labor. There's only so much that I can give away for free. I would have loved to stay longer. If at least one person contributed in some small way, but that didn't happen, which is okay. There's always another day. I will most certainly come back with more coverage of this auction and more watch talk at any rate. So feel free to recommend my platforms to other watch collectors, to fellow watch enthusiasts, and help me grow this community. You can also follow me on Instagram, where I post twice on a daily basis. Of course, if you want to support the channel, I outline some other ways in the video description, but you can readily use the ways that YouTube already provides for you. A super chat now, super thanks perhaps in the form of a comment after the live stream. Or you can become a member, as we mentioned before, which you can, by the way, do now on a desktop as well, right? It was, I think there was that glitch or deficiency in the system before where you had to be on your phone to become a member. That's no longer the case. So you can become a member whenever you want, whenever you like, whenever you are watching me, wherever you are watching me. So feel free to do that. A great way of supporting the channel and expanding the community is, of course, gifts memberships onto others as well. So I appreciate it. Thank you for your support. Again, that support is because this is an independent channel that takes a lot of work by a single individual to prepare and present. So when you are supporting the channel, you're actually getting value for your money in terms of the content that I provide you, in terms of the insight and knowledge that I share on a regular basis on Instagram and here and on YouTube. If you have found the link somehow, if you have chanced upon this live stream, if you have reached through Twitter, through Instagram, please subscribe here. I am here almost every day with live streams and other kinds of content. So that's really important for me to find the same kind of momentum that I did on Instagram here on YouTube as well. So I appreciate your support to that end too. Subscribe if you haven't, and stay tuned. Always hit the like button. Do not forget. The best way to contact me is leaving a comment right after this live stream ends under this video. You can also DM me on Instagram. I respond to just about everything. And we can at least begin a conversation there, and I can see what I can do for you. I am a horological consultant after all. I advise people on their watch purchases and on how they should start or develop or refresh their watch collection. So if you're interested in any of those consulting services and more on anything related to watches, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I will see you next time. I'll see you on the next one. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, wear and enjoy your watches. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.